Hey there, I'm Ashlea Bullington with my best friend. One of my best friends. You, me, and Ward. Not very many.
Well, it's like an overuse. Usually we use the word best.
Well, I've got some great friends. How about great?
Great
with one of my
friends.
great friends, the Professor Matt.
You know, I know after shows, you might have producers or whatever who tell you certain things or give you advice. I actually have like my own producer as well, my wife, who told me I need to have better posture on this show. So
Well,
we'll
Mrs.
try.
Diggs
We'll try to achieve that this week.
said better posture. I got told, be nice about what I say.
I need to sit up straight. You just need to be nice. So
Need to be nice.
Together, we might have a winning formula for this show.
I think we can do this.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know if I can be nice, though.
Diggsy, week 7.
Week 7, and there were upsets all over the place.
I like some good upsets.
And some expected, some unexpected. I know last week I had a segment on here where I talked about how I didn't think Prosper was as good as maybe people in Prosper thought they were.
Well, Diggsy won that bet.
I won that bet. But they could have the last laugh because even though, as you're going to hear, that they lost tonight, that actually gives them in a weird sort of way, it actually gives them a better playoff run.
I mean, so Prosper lost to Jesuit tonight, 41-14. Yes, it can give them a better playoff run to where they're not meeting up with a certain team.
Longview, now they won't have to probably face Longview in the second.
Which is not a bad deal to have.
No, it's not.
Rance Holman, the quarterback, was 13 for 19 on the night. We're going to give some love to Jake Taylor, who's another running back on that team. He had 21 carry attempts for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. E.J. Smith, the man, the myth, the legend, had 22 carries for 4 touchdowns, and they had 415 total yards on the night as they beat Prosper.
You know,
Diggsy, you are not going to be liked in Prosper.
I am absolutely loved in Prosper. See, all of my administrative friends came from McKinney, and I'm loved in McKinney as well. But, you know, for Prosper, 4 turnovers, and at the end of the day, that's not the reason they lost. They got behind early, and Jesuit just was a better football team tonight. I don't know if Prosper came out of that bye week flat or thinking about Allen, perhaps reading their own press clippings a little too much. But Jesuit is now, they're 4-0 with E.J. Smith playing. You know, their only 2 losses, he was not playing. And as you saw, you talked about Jake Taylor.
He's kind of a big deal, guys.
Yeah, but Jake Taylor is kind of the bell cow. He's doing the heavy lifting. He had 21 carries for 156 yards. But that gives E.J. Smith a chance to be a change of back pace, or change of pace back. Change of back pace. That's just bad.
Something.
Bad language right there. It's like pronouns and G's. And
I gotta fluff my hair a bit. Come on.
Pace back. And E.J. Smith is especially dangerous when you flank him out as a wide receiver. He just brings the defense to them and allows everybody else to do their thing for Jesuit. And big win for Jesuit. And next week, now all of a sudden, that Jesuit versus Allen game, I bet we might get a camera guy there.
Ooh, we might get a camera guy there. So Diggsy's next game gets my emoji this week.
What game you want to talk about that gets your emoji this week?
Arlington versus Arlington Bowie.
Arlington versus Arlington Bowie. Another big upset. It is just like upset. It is like Depression Central here on the 5th quarter because there are so many.
I'm not
upsets.
depressed. I mean, granted, guys, I've had a bad week too. For all you depressed teams out there, you and I, let's have a heart-to-heart. Not tonight, though.
Not tonight, but Arlington Bowie upset Arlington 21-20. And this was a game that was 14-2 at halftime. Arlington Bowie jumped out on them early and just held on. And this is a huge game for district ramifications. Now Arlington, with having this loss to Arlington Bowie is more likely to be the better seed in Division II. So you have playoff ramifications there. And to me, and people don't like when I do this, but if I'm Weatherford and I'm considering the fact that I might be playing the loser of this, I would have rather seen Arlington Bowie. And now you're going to have an Arlington team that might be 8-2 and a second seed, and Weatherford may be looking at them in the first round. I don't think they have a good matchup against. Arlington High. And now Arlington Bowie with this win would have to have a Bowie loss that wasn't expected and an Arlington win that wasn't expected. Arlington can get that win next week. They play Arlington Martin. A lot of people thought that would be for the district championship. Arlington Bowie said, wait a minute, what about us? To me, I don't want to call this win a fluke. I think Arlington would have been the better team 7 or 8 of 10 times that they played. This was the second or the 9th or 10th time. A lot of late flurries that Arlington just could not overcome. But give all the credit to Arlington Bowie, especially that defense. For Arlington Bowie to hold Arlington to 317 yards. Chris Sims only had 212 yards passing, or 214 yards passing, and most of that in the second half. Arlington Bowie's defense came to play, and with that north wind as kind of a second or as a 12th player,
the cold came in and Bowie heated up.
Bowie did. I love that segue. I can't do anything better than that.
Thank you. I tried very hard.
Bowie heated it up. Big win for Arlington Bowie. Probably one of their best wins in the last couple of years. Bowie has been thought of a third, fourth place team in this district. And now they set themselves up with very nicely in this district with a big win over Arlington.
And that's the first loss in district that Arlington's been handed in 2 seasons.
I mean, Arlington has been a good football team, and now we're going to see how they come back, because now they could have a 2-game losing streak if they can't overcome Arlington Martin next
Do you think that part of that loss might be a little bit from maybe Chris Sims not having as much experience as a quarterback, or do you think it's just because Bowie's defense was that good?
Well, I mean, Chris Sims, he was only 50-50, and maybe he just, as a first-year quarterback, maybe he didn't have the experience throwing into the wind. It was a big factor all over the area tonight. When teams had the wind, they had a lot better of a offensive rhythm, and given how this was a second-half game for Arlington High, they roared back in the second half, but it just wasn't enough. I think it was a mix. Obviously, Chris Sims got better as the game went on. Very lackluster first half, and rushing attack for Arlington Bowie, Marcellus Sims, 17 carries, 115 yards. Just got to credit the Bowie defense, and I think Arlington would love to have this game back, but in the game of football, you got one crack at it, and I think that's what makes our sport so great.
And another undefeated team that is now undefeated is Frisco Independence, as they took on the top team in the state in 5A in Frisco, Lone Star. Lone Star wins tonight 63-14, and they kind of had some video game numbers, I'd like to say.
They typically do.
I'm enjoying these video game numbers. They had 582 total yards for the night. Garrett Rangel is just a force to be reckoned with. I'd put him on my virtual team, on my video game team any day.
What about your fantasy team?
I might put him on my fantasy team. Like if I had a high school fantasy team, Garrett Rangel would be on it. So would Marvin Mims. But he went 20 for 21 for pass completions.
I take Mims early. He might be my first pick.
Okay, there you go.
Maybe him and Jackson Smith, who came back this week, by the way.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, they're definitely putting up lots of touchdowns, 14, 15 touchdowns each. But
Marvin Mims tonight had 2 touchdowns and 7 catches. Jake Bogdan and Jaden Nixon had 4 receiving touchdowns. And yeah, Garrett Rangel, 3 touchdowns for the night and a 95% pass completion rate. Garrett Rangel.
You, sir, had an excellent evening. And this game was actually played last night at the Star. And it kind of, you talked about how these teams were undefeated, but some breaking news came down this past week, or this over the late in the week, and I emailed you about it.
Yes.
I know you're like,
Frisco Independence had to forfeit 2 games.
Frisco Independence had to, and the big one, they had to forfeit a district game against Frisco Heritage last week for using an ineligible player. So now that gives them their second loss, and all of a sudden they go from
their technical second loss.
Yes, their technical second loss in district, and now you have Frisco Lone Star as the big dog in this district. The Colony is going to have kind of a buffer game now with a forfeit, to where even if they lost to Frisco Independence, depending on how the rest of the district went, that they might even still be above them in district standings. Again, we talk about defense. Frisco Independence, when they had a chance to step up and show that Frisco Lone Star's defense was not for real, They didn't do it. And a lot of these numbers are fourth quarter numbers, and Frisco Lone Star just completely shuts them down with the first teams.
I mean, the defense for Frisco Lone Star is done phenomenally. The offense is done phenomenally. I mean, we're not giving the defense enough credit every week as they're going in and just being, I love to say this, for the dogs of the team. And I've had players say that to me, so I think that I always find that really funny when they say that. But yeah, they're just going in there and they're not getting enough credit for how well they're playing. I mean, they shut down Highland Park,
Right.
They shut down the Colony, they shut down team week in, week out, and they're playing just phenomenally to give the offense the ability to do what they're doing.
Well, and this was a clean game. We talk about how turnovers factor into things and penalties, and neither team had turnovers. Frisco Lone Star was just 49 points better than Frisco Independence. Yeah. And that's what we see, that they are consistently 5-6 touchdowns better than everybody in this district.
Exactly. So, Diggsy, what's another game that you want to talk about tonight?
Well, I think to end our first segment, let's go to 3-6A and let's talk about the Halton versus Trinity game. And I know this is a battle that brings back memories for you. Again, tell the story.
I didn't get to go to the game, the Halton versus Trinity game last year, but I did get to blow the buffalo horn.
What does that entail? What does that mean? Like, are you at a pep rally blowing?
No, I got to go to a game, and when they scored a touchdown, I got to blow the horn, and it was awesome. But my dad did play at Trinity, so this is a game where I have to be neutral. I have to be Sweden in this game.
Well, you have to take the feedback given to you that you can't be mean.
I can't be mean, but I will be Sweden.
But last year, pretty much the coming out party for Halton was their victory over Euless Trinity last year.
Most definitely.
And it led them to a district championship, and Halton was, just flying high, and then they had a very chilly game, and Amarillo was very chilly tonight.
I mean, going to Amarillo and snowing like it did, Halton would give you a little bit of a pass for that.
And, out in West Texas, Amarillo Tascosa's running attack traveled a little better than Halton's passing attack, especially when you're throwing into the blowing wind. And you would think that Euless Trinity would have an advantage tonight, having the ground-based game, that they could just pound it down their throat. But Halton, especially losing last week to Weatherford, as we talked about in depth on this show, they came back and they bounced back with a big win. Now, I'm gonna get in trouble. See, I'm gonna be not nice.
It's okay. Diggsy can be not nice. I can't.
I have not gotten that constructive feedback yet. Because I think they like when I'm mean, but like when you're mean, it's like.
I mean, I'm a cute little girl. I'm not supposed to be mean.
But this game could be one of those games that, because of the way the district turns out, means absolutely nothing. Because Halton, even though they won this game, we're expecting Halton to be a playoff team. The Division I, Division II split doesn't. Halton and Trinity are not going to be in the same division, so Halton beating Trinity is not going to impact the playoff seeding. And if Halton can't beat a team like San Angelo Central, the way the district comes out, San Angelo Central beats them. Trinity stays with one loss because they already have wins over San Angelo Central. And then you have Halton, who's already lost to Weatherford. It could ultimately mean that Halton has 2 losses, Trinity has 1 loss, and Trinity ends up still as the district champion, sharing with a team like San Angelo Central, who might also get 1 loss in district, but they already had that win. So big win for Halton, I think, in a confident sort of way. Halton had they lost to Lake Highlands, they lost to Weatherford. They just struggled throughout. They lost to Saginaw early in the year, and now all of a sudden they get a little bit of confidence. We'll see how Halton can carry this momentum on into the rest of their season. But an absolutely huge win, and it was a relatively clean game. Trinity had a lot of penalties, 7 for 70 yards and a fumble. But Adam Hill had a good night, an efficient night. He got completions when they mattered. And Kenneth Cormier had a touchdown. Adam Hill running the ball again, just 3 or 4 yards in a cloud of dust. Halton out-Trinitied Trinity on this night.
So, Diggs, real quick, for those of us who do not understand, Division I, Division II.
Okay.
How does it map out?
Well, this is only in 6A because all the other divisions have their enrollment settled from before the regular season starts. So what you do in 6A is you take the 4 playoff teams, the 2 biggest enrollments of those 4 teams will go Division I, the 2 lower enrollments will go Division II. And that leads to a lot of inequitable kind of scenarios where, for instance, and this is not going to happen, but let's say you had Allen, Plano, and Plano East all make the playoffs in that division. You would have a 6,000 student school as a small school.
Oh, wow.
Because, only 2 of those 3 teams would be big school and the other
Sorry,
two
guys,
would
I
be
didn't
small
know
school.
these things before right now.
So, and then you have other districts like Garland where your big schools only have 2,700, 2,800 students in it. And in the District 36A that we're talking about, Trinity and San Angelo Central are likely to be your big schools in this, and Weatherford and Halton are likely to be your small schools. Another result that happened tonight was LD Bell. They had a big win. One of the first times, I can't remember the last time LD Bell had a district win. I'm sure somebody's going to be able to go, it was last year. And LD Bell has been at the bottom of the district for a while.
Yes.
And now a 35-34 win over Richland in overtime. Richland had a win over Abilene 35-34 a couple of weeks ago. And then LD Bell lost to Abilene last week in Abilene's homecoming. So now you have these 3 teams have all beaten each other, and they've all kind of ended up tying. So I think you pretty much have your 4 playoff spots locked up now, and you have Euless, Trinity, and San Angelo Central. They're going to be your D1 teams, and then you have Halton and Weatherford being your D2 teams. And even though Halton beat Trinity this week, it doesn't change the fact that when you're looking at the D2 seedings, they've already lost to Weatherford.
Yeah.
So now they're going to have another win, and Weatherford's going to have another loss for that game against Trinity to mean anything. But still, I don't want to take anything away from the Buffaloes, but in the big scheme of things, means very little. And now we can't say that about all the games we're going to talk about tonight, but in this specific game, means very little.
Well, we like shakeups here on the 5th quarter. We'll talk
posture,
about
by the
more
way?
of them. I think your posture looks great. Hey, I wore my glasses for you.
You're very studious. What would Coach Buck say about your glasses?
I don't know what he would say. That's a good question.
It's a good
We'll have to
question.
ask him sometime. But we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the 5th quarter.
Don't forget to catch our extended coverage of the high school football season each week on The Warm-Up, presented by your local North Texas Geico agents. We will get you ready for all the action this Thursday on all our social media outlets. Watch Inside High School Sports to catch this week's MVP, brought to you by GiveMeTheVin.com. These MVP athletes make it look easy, just like GiveMeTheVin.com makes it easy to sell your car.
And we are back with the 5th quarter, and this is Diggs' favorite segment because he just gets to talk and talk and talk.
So today we're going to talk about Freudian psychoanalysis and how the psychosexual stages all relate to each other. We're going to start with
Dixie, I've got some things I could talk about, like mentally with you if you'd like to go over that. I mean,
Well,
let's
people-
fall right in there.
people have their mental issues, and we won't get into them today because I'm sad because I had to watch my beloved Panthers take a whooping, maybe a certain kind of whooping that we're not allowed to say on the air, to the Allen Eagles tonight, 45-14. And it's one of those games where you look at the score and you're like, oh, they only lost by 31. Look at Plano East. Like, oh. But boy, they only lost by 31, but Allen took the throttle off really. A lot of grace was shown by Coach Gamble this week. So thank you, Coach Gamble. My heart is a little bit warmer. And I know you got to see a lot of your second team and your third team and your fourth team and maybe a little bit of the fifth team. As that game went on. Plano East had 4 turnovers in the first half, 3 in the first 10 offensive plays. It just wasn't pretty. But a game that I was at last night that was absolutely shocking, and it might have been the other shocking score in 9-6A until Prosper and Jesuit, our game knocked it up, was Plano versus McKinney. It was a game that spanned over 2 days. It started last night. It got postponed in the 4th quarter at 11:11 left. See, when you have 11-11 is like a nice, great,
Have you ever heard of a 2-day game?
a great hand in poker. We had lots of two-day games over this past week. Lots of games getting postponed to last night, and then we're going to have a lot more on Saturday. But Plano beat McKinney 56-49. A lot of people consider that an upset. I consider that an upset. But this game was a real microcosm in McKinney giving up. They got down 42-14 in the third quarter and just did not give up. Did fake punts, went for it on fourth down. Coach Shavers just gave it his all. But you have to credit Plano for continuing to make the plays. Plano only got stopped 2 times in the whole game, and they had 8 touchdowns. They also had a turnover in special teams, which really got McKinney back into the game. But both times that Plano got stopped is when they were trying to run out the clock at the end of the game, just trying to run the ball down McKinney's throat. And in the third quarter, getting up by 4 touchdowns, they tried to run and drain clock, and it got out of their offensive rhythm. McKinney got a stop there. Plano impressed me with their offense, and I hate to say that because Plano's our big rivals. The Panther fan in me, the Plano East class of '95 in me, did not like to see Plano having as much success as they did. But Plano's offense, when they open it up and they fling it around, is a fantastic offense. They have weapons: Nolan Williams, Tylen Hines, Cody Christ, Oliver Towns, big weapons for Plano that led them to a big upset win. And now with Jesuits win, I think 9-6A is completely flipped upside down. Big game next week between Plano and Plano East. That could have a lot to say about who's going to get the 4th playoff spot in that district. Because now, after Jesuit beat Prosper, I think we have to say Jesuit is pretty safe for a playoff spot.
In Jesuit, we at the beginning of the season didn't know where they were going to be.
Yeah, because last year a lot of Jesuit had a lot of hype attached to them, and they finished 7th in this district, only beating Plano West. And this year, the same hype was attached to them. E.J. Smith is kind of the shiny car. But again, Jesuit is doing it without E.J. Smith being the featured back and doing it without him being a featured wide receiver at times when they flank him out. And Jesuit is really also doing it with defense. And I think that's something they've been much maligned for over the last few years, that Jesuit hasn't played a lot of defense. It's almost like the Texas Tech started playing defense out in college football. Does that offend you?
I would rather them not play defense. I'm a TCU fan. But I appreciate them not playing defense, period.
So other games, and there are just fantastic games of note. You want to talk about the Azel game of the week?
Can we talk about Flower Mound Marcus versus Hebron? Fine, we'll talk about Azel first.
No, we don't have to talk
Then
about
we'll
Azel.
go back to town.
No.
He likes going way far out there.
I was just trying to mess with you. This is a much better game.
Thank you.
And a much more important game in the district than Azel and Saginaw Boswell. So let's talk about Hebron and Marcus.
So Flower Mound Marcus defeats Hebron tonight. Hebron wins 24-14 over Marcus wins 24-14 over Hebron. Marcus is looking like a contender now. They always look like a contender, but they lose to Flower Mound. Now they have this big win against Hebron, who's kind of I would call them the dark horse of that district, because you never know what's going to happen with them. And they win this one, and it's one of those still anybody's district.
Right. Because Flower Mound, Marcus actually still has to play Flower Mound in a couple of weeks. But what we saw was in our game 2 weeks ago, Flower Mound, the Jaguars had a big win over Louisville. Hebron had a big win last week over Coppell. So now we have Marcus's first test. And they passed the test. They had been feasting on the Irving schools for the first couple of weeks, and now they had an opportunity to make themselves known in this district, and getting up 17-6 on Hebron early in the first quarter was really the key. Flower Mound Marcus was able to use a onside kick early in the game. Great call by Coach Atkinson. I heard an interview he did about this game where he actually said he saw something in the tape. And then he saw the alignment where he thought he had an opportunity. He's like, let's do it. And that was after Flower Mound Marcus got up 10-6 against Hebron. Because Hebron came down and drove it down their throats for the first drive. But Marcus was able to come back, get a turnover, able to get that field goal, and then get the onside kick. and then all of a sudden it's 17-6, and Hebron's having to play back on their heels, and then Marcus's defense was up for the task. But what can we say about Garrett Nussmeyer? This is a very special quarterback. He didn't have big yardage, but he had efficient yardage, threw the ball about 17 for 33, but 2 big touchdowns. Jaden Robinson was his favorite target on the night, 3 catches for 51 yards. Also, J. Michael Sturdivant. You like that name, J. Michael Sturdivant? Very regal.
Yes, studious, regal.
Sturdivant. He's going to clip this, and it's going to be on his huddle highlight reel. J. Michael Sturdivant, you caught 5 balls for 38 yards. Those little quick bubble routes that Marcus loves to do. And Marcus has been traditionally known as a ground and pound team. That's been their identity, but Coach Atkinson is kind of changing things up. They threw the ball 33 times, only ran it 22 times, and an absolutely big win for Marcus, because we didn't know what we were going to get on Marcus.
Yeah.
We've been playing the Irving teams. We talk about it's kind of our running gag on this segment that we're going to talk about our 6-6A game of the week, because there's always going to be one, and this week we actually have 2. And Flower Mound Marcus won that big game. They still have all the big games left. They still got to play Coppell. They still got to play Louisville, the Battle of the Axe, and the Mound Showdown. And these are 2 big rivalry games. Flower Mound Marcus and Louisville used to light up the skies back when Louisville ISD only had the 2 high schools. And now you had the Mound Showdown, and that is a game where truly anything can happen. Over the last 10, 15 years, some of the craziest results have come from the Flower Mound Showdown.
I got to go to that game last year, and it was crazy.
I mean, and the fans, they love to hate each other. They get into it. And so how Marcus is going to do against that, and then Coppell. But we had some kind of sad news from Coppell that their quarterback was seen in a walking boot this week, and that could have led to our other game of the week.
Louisville versus Coppell. The Fighting Farmers defeat the Cowboys 35-10. Was that a good?
I like that.
Was that a good voice?
That was a good voice.
Yeah. So Louisville has 398 total yards to Coppell's 261. Passing. Taylon Green completes 14 passes. They use 3. It says they have 3 quarterbacks on the night.
Oh, probably just at the end of the day. But Taylon Green, he's the junior quarterback for Louisville. A very efficient night. 14 completions, and 4 of them went for touchdowns. And their sophomore, Armani Winfield, 7 catches for 159 yards. 4 of those, he got all those touchdowns. When you are a sophomore, that is something, that's almost bobblehead work.
That means you are a trusted member of that team.
The Fighting Farmers. And for me, the significance of this game, and people don't like when I count them out, but I think we have our playoff teams in this district. Coppell is still going to give everybody heck every single week when they play one of the Big Five. But now they have 2 losses against the Big Five. We saw them lose to Hebron. We saw them lose to Flower Mound. And now they have the issue where they have to, or they lost to Louisville, and now they're going to have to win one of those games because they've lost. Hebron has a win over Coppell, and now Flower Mound Marcus has a win over Hebron. So Hebron's getting kind of pushed down that district rankings. Louisville has a loss to Flower Mound as well. So you have Flower Mound and Marcus with big wins over Hebron and Louisville, and now you have Coppell trying to get over all of that to get in there. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. I think Coppell is going to be the odd team out. But it would not surprise me if week 10 or week 11 they stole a win. But just like the Halton Trinity game, it may be too little, too late.
Well, interesting. Very good takes, Diggsy. But another district that I think will be interesting after looking up all of the scores from tonight is that Keller district.
Boy, defense. We talk about some of these things, and we're not going to be talking about Southlake. We're not going to be talking about Denton Guyer when we talk about defense. But the bottom 5 teams that are all competing for those last two playoff spots, they play some defense. And the Northwest Eaton versus Keller game, again, just an absolute slugfest. The other game that was of note in that district, you had Keller Central and Keller Fossil Ridge 13-10. A sports radio 13-10 score right there. You might get a free Jack in the Box burger or something when you get that score. If you get the right sponsorships going on. But I think in this district, even though you might still see one or two more wonky things because you saw Keller Central and Keller win these very pivotal games, and we're going to see Keller Central against Northwest Eaton next week. I think it's going to be Keller Central and Keller who are going to be your likely teams to get the third and fourth playoff spot.
Which isn't what you would think from that district.
Well, you know, there's so much parity in spots 3 through 7. Again, that's why I said I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Northwest Eaton or Byron Nelson get a win in there that they shouldn't perhaps get. And all of a sudden we're dealing with tiebreakers later on in the season. But I think Keller Central has shown, I mean, their only loss right now has been to Denton Guyer. And they gave Denton Guyer a heck of a first half. And I think that Keller's got the offensive firepower that you don't see. Fossil Ridge, when's the last time you've only seen a 6A team only have like 45 yards in the whole game? And not a game where it's like, you know.
Actually, it's 34 yards.
30.
They had negative 5 passes.
I mean, it was just ridiculous, the dominance that Keller Central had in that game.
I'm sorry.
34 yards. Keller Central defense, what is up? But I think, as of right now, I'm looking at Keller and Keller Central to be those two teams. And that will have some playoff ramifications. It means Keller and Southlake would be your D1 schools. Denton Guyer would benefit from that, be a D2 school with Keller Central, and those would be definite to Coach Walsh's advantage that you would see Denton Guyer go D2 instead of D1.
I mean, Denton Guyer, I think, would be hooting and hollering and saying, let's do it.
They definitely, D2 is wide open in Region 1, and I think you might see Denton Guyer and Cedar Hill be some of the favorites in that Division 2 setup. But we already saw earlier this year that Denton Guyer has a victory over Cedar Hill. So, yeah, we might see some rematches in the district. Again, we talked about 9-6A this week. A lot of people predicted that this would be the week that Plano West would end the 31-game losing streak.
And
Was it the week, do you think?
I
know you're not seeing it, so what do you think?
I would hope so for your Plano heart's sake. Oh,
I have no emotional attachment to Plano West. But Plano West lost to McKinney Boyd this week. So the continued losing streak continues for Plano West, and I'm worried it might be against my Panthers that they get that first win. Plano East, you know, is cruising toward the playoffs, and then Plano West just has that one special week. But have it against somebody else. Have it against Allen or something.
Don't do it against Daisy's team.
Big week in District 11 6A. Mesquite Horn gave Longview all that they could handle for a half, but Longview held off Mesquite Horn. We had the Battle of Mesquite, the original rivalry in Mesquite, North Mesquite, and Mesquite, the Skeeters took care of business. And big news in Rockwall, if you want to pull up that Rockwall game and tell us.
Rockwall defeated Rockwall 38-17.
And what was significant about that box score?
Is back up.
Give us his stat line, because it's not bad for somebody who's been gone for effectively the last 2 weeks. He
8
played one play.
receptions for 110 yards, averaging 13.8 yards per catch, and 3 total touchdowns.
I mean, it's crazy that how many touchdowns he has without having played 2 full games. I mean, he averages 4 touchdowns a game. That is the kind of special player he is. And I'm personally glad for Rockwall because I want to see a team with all of their weapons.
Yeah.
I don't want to see injuries impact playoffs. I want to see the teams with their best players. And some significant yardage for that. Again, I think 11-6A's playoff route is shaping up. I think we're going to see Tyler Lee played Mesquite for the last playoff spot, but I think Longview, Rockwall, and Mesquite Horn are definitely in, and there's basically one game that is left to be decided in that district.
Another game that I see that I find kind of interesting, maybe not super interesting actually now that I look at their record, but Waxahachie, Mansfield Acreage just waxes Waxahachie.
Now, I'm actually surprised at this because I was not willing to take Waxahachie in the upset pick. But the way Waxahachie had played his last couple of games, it gave Cedar Hill a great game for about a half. And Lake Ridge has had some questionable defensive play over the last couple of weeks. We saw that against South Grand Prairie. I thought Waxahachie had a chance in this game. I took Lake Ridge, but I thought they had a chance.
I thought with how Lake Ridge has played as of late, like granted Lake Ridge has pulled out, has lost to some really good teams
Right.
in DeSoto and Mansfield Timberview, but I thought Waxahachie might give them at least a better game, more than 10 points.
Yes. Yeah, I thought it could be a 1 to 2 possession game. If Waxahachie got a bounce or two, I thought they had a chance to steal a win there, but I still took Lake Ridge. But Lake Ridge, I think, had that bounce back week. They had 2 weeks to prepare for this. We talked about the tragedy that happened in Lake Ridge where they lost their defensive coordinator. I think, and then they had the tough games against Timberview and DeSoto and South Grand Prairie. I think that bye week could have really been their leveling off period to kind of cool down. But the way this district is going to work, I don't know if it's going to matter. They're going to have a chance against Mansfield Summit. Summit had a big game against Cedar Hill this week, and Cedar Hill took them to task. I think that basically Lake Ridge's last chance to get in the playoffs, the way the district was working, you had the top 4 teams at 2-0 and the bottom 4 teams at 0-2. Lake Ridge got that first win. Summit got their first loss, so they gained a game on them. Is they're going to have to beat crosstown rival Summit. So that's going to be a fun game when Mansfield ISD have that Mansfield ISD war. It's going to be fun, but it looks like Lake Ridge might be finding out a little bit of something. And Summit, I think, might have been a little overconfident. They had that nice 5-0 start, but they hadn't really played anybody. And now they're looking at the back end of the schedule being loaded, and Lake Ridge can breathe a little bit. They have some winnable games coming up.
So, well, my internet's not working, so I can't look at any more scores right this moment. But Dix,
I have all of the scores. I have
how
all of the
about you
information.
give us a handful of more games before we ask you your final thoughts of Week 7?
Well, now is officially, because I think we've talked about 6A, is Azle Corner. Dun, dun, dun. And your Azle Hornets defeated Saginaw Boswell this week. I think it was 49-14.
You're going to
If I
start
remember right.
mentioning them now every single week.
Every single week.
No matter what.
No matter what, we're going to find out how Azle did. 49-13. I'm sorry, we did not want to give Saginaw Boswell that extra point. 49-13. In that district, actually, a couple of big games of note that I did not expect to happen the way they did. It was a 12 p.m. game because of rainouts on Thursday night. Crowley against Granberry. Granberry, your other adopted team.
That's where I live now. Don't come by me.
35-34, Crowley defeated Granberry. A game much closer than anybody thought. Crowley was pushed to the brink by Granberry, and Granberry, even though they're 3-3 and 2-2 in district, they showed they can compete with the top teams. And one of the top teams are the Saginaw Rough Riders, who had a big win over Saginaw Boswell last week. Completely unexpected, probably the upset of the night. With all due respect to Jesuit and all due respect to Halton, Chisholm Trail. The lower kids on the block beat the big kids on the block in a impressive fashion this week. So what can we say about that? That was one emoji wars. I still don't believe that happened. I'm going to have to figure out what happened with that because that was a game that I thought that Saginaw was a 3 or 4 touchdown favorite in. And Chisholm Trail, even though they had a good win over Wichita Falls earlier in the year, and then Wichita Falls had a nice win against Canyon Randall. So you can tag Canyon Randall and Wichita Falls in this now.
I like it.
We talk about everybody on the 5th quarter. And that's an important district when we get to Division II in 5A, because District 4 5A are friends in Fort Worth ISD, the Fort Worth Poly Parrots, or maybe the ODY Chaparrals. Or Eastern Hills, the Mighty Highlanders. Love this naming teams.
We're just trying to get all the names in that we can get.
Or the Justin Northwest Texans. Or my beloved Forward Poly Parrots. They will be paying 3-5A in the first round. So we will have to find out. So it's important to keep an eye on Canyon Randall. It's important to keep an eye on teams like Wichita Falls and find out how that district goes because you will be seeing them in the first round.
I'm curious how many one-liners I can get in while you talk. I've gotten like 4 right now.
Is I'm just ignoring you?
Yeah, pretty much. My one-liners are great at this point in time.
I'm not very. I don't roll my eyes very well, but I would roll my eyes very. My daughters roll their eyes phenomenally at me.
Final game, Dixie. Final game.
I'll just kind of I'll take my final game cue and just mention a couple of scores that I thought were interesting. Denton Ryan, I know. Denton Ryan actually was tested against Colleyville Heritage this week, but they won going away. But Colleyville Heritage was probably the best test that Denton Ryan had so far. Big win by Frisco Wakeland over Little Elm in that District 5A. Highland Park did Highland Park things this week. Big win last night. Your boy Seth McGowan just completely ran all over Texas High. The mighty Poteet Pirates are showing some signs of life in that district. And Burleson Centennial, this District 5A in Division 2 is freaking me out because we talked about it extensively last week and had some great story time from you with the Aledo Midlothian game. And Burleson gave Aledo for the first half a little bit of a tussle, but Aledo pulled away. But then you're expecting Burleson Centennial to have a pretty easy time with Cleburne. That game went to overtime, 56-55. Burleson Centennial held off Cleburne. I said it last week. I believe it this week. Watch out for the mighty Yellow Jackets of Cleburne. I think they're going to have something to say in this district before all is said and done. Huge game. Lovejoy had a walk-off victory against Frisco Reedy. We could talk about District 7-5A Division 2 all night. Reedy with 2-point wins and now a 1-point loss. Lovejoy with a 20-19 win. And I will end with giving a shout-out to our friends in Royce City. The Bulldogs are back. They have shown that they are a playoff team, and now they are potentially a district contender after beating Corsicana this week, 27-0. I know Ennis got the victory over Royce City already, so they're not going to obviously be district champs unless something crazy happens. But an absolutely big victory for Royce City and kind of getting back to where they wanted to be in football.
Well, Dixie, final thought from week 7.
Lots of upsets. I think more than ever we are just seeing the parity that is involved in 6A football. I think you don't see as much parity in 5A because the haves and the have-nots and the gulfs between the teams are so much more. I love seeing the stories of Royce City. I love seeing the stories of Lovejoy figuring out their lots in life. I think District 5A is showing us a lot of competitive fire with Burleson Centennial, Aledo, Midlothian, Cleburne, and then also 3-5A Division 1 with Azle and Saginaw and Boswell. There are some really good competitive district races that are coming to fruition in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and we will be here.
Right here.
On the 5th quarter to let you know. Good posture.
The Game Day Studio.
In the Game Day Studios. And we'll break it down, especially as we get to playoffs and how all of the playoff ramifications work and how it impacts projections.
You're not going to want to miss it every single week right here.
And you have classes this
I
week.
do have classes this week. Don't want to miss it.
I know you did, but still, it means a lot to me.
Well,
It does.
that's all we have from the Professor Matt Diggs tonight. He'll be back with us next week. We'll be right back with the Wizard.
Where was the Wizard? Do you know where the Wizard was?
I do not remember off the top of my head where the Wizard was.
I know he was at McKinney Plano last night, so he was at my game, so you could probably see a little bit of...
Where was the Wizard?
Because where the Wizard goes, he said he was in South Dallas tonight, so maybe it was at Cedar Hill Summit?
Cedar Hill Summit, Duncanville Lake Highlands.
So those are going to be some good highlights.
Those are going to be some good highlights. So we will have highlights from the Wizard right after this.
The Inside Story is driven by your North Texas Honda dealers. Right now, they can help you get great deals on award-winning Hondas. It's their job to be helpful, so stop by your local helpful Honda dealer today.
And it's time for the one, the only, Ward, the Wizard. The Wizard!
How are you?
I'm good. Let's see where were you at tonight, Wiz?
I was at Duncanville against Lancaster against Lake Highlands, not Lancaster. Lancaster was busy roughing up Sunset 72-0. But I was at this game in Quentin Jackson. How he always talks about people don't respect his arm. Well, they need to respect his legs too. Watch him push this guy down to the ground as he tries to tackle him, and he is gone.
Gone.
That is a 59-yard touchdown run. Lake Highlands tried to slow it down, much like Midlothian did with Alito last week. But this two different offenses right here. The speed that Duncanville had ended up coming out on top 28-6. They're going to breeze through their district 8-6A. We wanted to go out and at least see them play some before before they put that district to bed. I also went and saw Cedar Hill. Last year they played Mansfield Summit and lost 7-3. This year they made no doubts about what they were going to do to them. By the time I got there, it was 28-7. They ended up winning 49-21. Cedar Hill's back after losing those first two games. They're ready. And, of course, they don't get DeSoto to the very last game of the year, but that's going to be one that everybody's going to want to see. It's a Thursday night game. We'll be there.
Wiz.
Will Ashley be there?
No.
Okay.
No.
That was quick.
I don't get to go out to
That's
games
a quick
anymore,
answer.
guys. I'm sorry.
We miss seeing you out there.
I miss going out to games. They keep me here now so I can do this beautiful show for y'all. Wiz, Halton beat Trinity again.
They did beat them again. Nobody expected that, especially when the defense they threw at Weatherford last week, and all of a sudden they shut down Trinity. It's just crazy. And that makes next week's Trinity against Weatherford game even more exciting because they'll be playing right over here at Pennington. And
So who do you got for that one? The Ruse
I'm still going
or
to go
Trinity?
with Trinity, but
I'm going for the Ruse, Wiz.
are you? That's out by you,
House
isn't it?
divided.
That's out by you, isn't it?
It is.
You have to. The closer it is to Granberry, the more you like these
The
teams.
closer. Let's not get into that,
Alright, we're
Wiz.
not gonna
Come
start
on.
this age
Come on,
stuff
we're not going to
again.
start that again. Diggs tried to start it with me a minute ago.
You know how Diggs is, but we will have highlights of that, and we're gonna have post game too. My guy stayed there and got a sound bite from the quarterback, and we're gonna have sound from Bowie upsetting Arlington.
That was crazy.
That was another one, and Arlington has Martin next week, which is our game of the week. Maybe they need to bounce back because they're playing even more stealth defense than Bowie had.
So, Wiz, what will be on Wingstop Inside High School Sports tomorrow?
Besides,
And it's at a new time.
By the way, it's a 5:00 start because Notre Dame, USC. Make sure you all set these DVRs or sit down with your popcorn
At
Be
5, and then
ready.
you can watch.
Then you can
Notre
watch
Dame.
your Notre Dame USC game or whatever you want. But we're gonna have a story about how 10-6A is up for grabs. There's 8 teams in it. 7 of them have a legitimate chance to make one of those 4 playoff spots. We went out and talked to a bunch of coaches, and they're going to tell us why there's so much parity in 10-6A this year. And we're also going to have a flashback of we've covered a lot of fathers and sons, where the sons have now become the coaches. Oh, that sounded weird. The sons have now become the coaches. Right. They've learned from your dad, and basically, if you wanted to see your dad and your dad's a football coach, you pretty much have to be with him all the time at the football field, and you absorb it. And players like Riley Dodge and J.W. Walsh, all these guys have now gone on to coaching, and we're doing a little flashback on that. We're going to have a bobblehead winner out of Weatherford. It's going to be a pretty sweet thing
He's
to
a
see.
Roo.
He's a Roo.
He's
very,
a Roo.
Very excited. And, of course, we have highlights from about 10, 11 games. It's going to be a jam-packed show.
Wiz, final thought from week 7 of Texas High
My
School
final
football.
thought is about 6-6A.
Ooh.
I think that we may have knocked Capel out of the running here. I think, in my opinion, the 4 teams have already been. My 4 teams are Flower Mound, Marcus, Hebron, and Louisville, and Capel. I don't think it's going to make it. And I know they had a lot of hype at the beginning of the year. I don't think they're going to be one of the 5. I think, or one of the 4. They're going to be the 5th team, and they're going to be out with the Irving schools.
Hot take from the Wizard. But you can watch everything on tomorrow's episode of Wingstop Inside High School Sports at 5 p.m.
5 o'clock.
on NBC5, hosted by Pat Doney. We'll see you
next week on the warm-up.
Exactly.
Don't forget to plug into the warm-up. Team of the week. You'll see me, Team of the week, Battlefield Bobblehead. Stay tuned for everything on social media if you can't watch the show. Right?
We got it all wrapped up.
Inside High School Sports DFW. But for now, bye.
See you then.